Are live. What's up, everybody? It is G Mr. Drew here to welcome you to another episode of the Glowczewski Experience. This is going to be episode 123. I'm going to continue working on this piece. Normally, I switch things up from days to days, but I don't know. I kind of want to just stick to focus on finishing this one and then moving on. What else do we have to work on? I still have the two environments for this character here. Is a couple of city pieces. This page is going to be dedicated for like side pieces. And, I've had some ideas, but nothing that's really grabbing me. And then I guess I still have one square here for this character. Maybe I throw in another environment for him just as like extra credit, or I have no idea. Maybe I just focus. I was thinking about like focusing on his like weapons designs or something like that, because it's very unclear still as to like what I initially drew of just the idea of throwing actual like little drills and tools and things like that on him here, to just having it look more like knives or something like that here. So I started getting ideas of weapons for him, and it was like, well, the whole point of this is to get, you know, those ideas out. Like, I also have him holding these things, and it was like, okay, so how do I go from here to here to here? And yeah, so I figure maybe this last bit is gonna be focused on just the amorphous weapons that he has or something like that, and let that be it for this guy, because I'm kind of cool with everything that I have, and I think that's probably the only missing piece. And yeah, everything else is done up till that point. So yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good as far as like all this stuff goes, and I'm kind of happy with where everything's going, how everything's going, and yeah, now it's just like, you know, I did what I wanted to do with this character, which is just three small ones and then one big piece. So I just gotta get this piece done, and that's what we're here to do. Do I think I'll be finishing it in this stream? Probably not, but I'll certainly do my best to cover a lot of ground. Um, but yeah, let me see. I wonder how much. So yeah, I don't really have anything to talk about today. Usually I'm doing like reviews or something lately, just because there's been so much going on. But I'm just gonna let the new rock stars play in the background. They're talking about the Falcon Winter Soldier finale. Who did Sharon Carter the Power Broker call, all that stuff. Like, they're just talking about stuff. So I'm just gonna let that ride in the background while I figure out this. We're all pronouncing it completely wrong, or right. One of us must be right. When he shows up there, that's why he's just doing that fight scene with his sister. I think that Magical is just gonna be like the side part. It's gonna be like, oh, remember this from Falcon and Winter Soldier? Yeah, he has crime people here too. But I think with your breakdown, boss, that castle that he took over millions of years ago will be that castle that they're using as the headquarters. Yeah, yeah. Or not millions. Well, millions of ancient humans. Maybe millions, maybe. Maybe a thousand. No, 2 billion. 2 billion. So, you guys, give me a break. And so, I'm drinking a cold brew in a celebratory 2021 graduation cup. I graduated in 2016. So I think that still boss. I think that's gonna be the main part. But I mean, with that, I feel like my theory is kind of lame to be like, Sharon is probably just being there, trying to do undercover stuff. Magic is literally just there for the sister. But I do think that he's so big that we have to give the Mandarin such a big like entrance that I think Magic is too small. I think it's gonna be like, yeah, it has to be huge.
say, just following up what you're saying about Magic because you do bring up a great point as far as that would be the Mandarin's headquarters, so to speak, because obviously, again, Eric, great breakdown that you had, the castle and everything that we already saw, that's most likely where his origin, his base is going to be. But I kind of think of Madripoor as, and I keep using Star Wars references, I'm sorry, but the Tatooine of the MCU.
Yeah,
So to
yeah,
speak.
no, yeah, absolutely.
It kind of gives us the place where all the criminals go, where all the shitty stuff is going. Yeah, exactly. So
I agree with
maybe
that.
that's it. But now I am going to push back a little bit on your Sharon Carter thing because I truly hope she isn't really undercover and just this is the deepest of deep fakes of all time. I hope she has just completely broke bad. I hope that Civil
Yeah.
War made her go, you know what? Screw you guys. You guys all got off. I'm just, it's like Deep Cover. If you remember that movie with Larry Fishburne back in the 90s. But she started off a good guy and now she's a villain. I really hope that. I think
I
that would be an interesting twist
yeah.
and a different look at a character we already know.
I want her to be the villain, but I don't think she, which is, people are gonna come at me, feel free. I don't think she is capable of like the man. Those people are just murderers. They're just killers. Like they don't need like a motive. So it's like So you're just gonna start killing people recklessly. I feel like you still have an ounce of like morality in your heart. So I don't
I
know
don't
if you
know
would
if
go
they're reckless. They seem pretty precise in their targets.
about
You know,
who
they
they're
didn't kill
doing.
Tony Stark.
Yeah.
They knew to use Tony Stark to build them another super weapon. And she was pretty John Wick vicious in those shipyards. Let's admit that's a new side of Sharon Carter we've seen.
No, but those are bad people. I don't know. I feel like in the comics he seems more like ruthless. To be fair, I was going off the comics that are
Sure, sure.
not being combined to the new series. I don't think. I
Uh huh.
think we're going because I was reading like the 1975 ones where I'm like, this isn't even the same person. So, but he just seems like not remorse. Like he has no remorse.
I really like the idea about the sister. I hadn't thought about that. That would be
Yeah.
really fun if the sister
Yeah.
was the power broker. Because one of the things that I didn't
Ooh,
like is
that's
if the power broker is someone we already know, like let's say it's the Mandarin, well, he's the Mandarin and the power broker, or Sharon Carter and it's the power broker. It's like it would be fun if it was maybe someone new that we didn't know, but also I don't think it would be like a not well known actor like how Dr. Nagle. Like it would probably gonna be somebody well known, but also maybe not be a A-list reveal that's because they just did that with the last episode. One theory I wanted to propose to you, or maybe even a rogue theory, if you will. If we're going off of that theory that it's going to be somebody we already know, I think that there could be somebody that we've already met that has the resources and the reach and just so happens to have some connection to the Mandarin that could be the power broker, and someone who I would think would be so fun to see. I really want, and I hope, the power broker is Justin Hammer. And here's why. So, at the end of the All Hail the King spot, we saw that he was at Seagate with,
Uh huh.
Trevor Slattery. And maybe when he got broken out, maybe he was able to escape too, running off, and maybe he ran out to Magic War. And since losing the arms race, really, to Tony, as far as enhancing people with armor, he could have shifted into enhancing people with the serum, or other ways. And that's how he kind of became this power broker. Now he gets to live it up and be rich at that club, dancing every night, probably complimentary lollipops at the door.
Yeah, Rockwell's gonna work in a
Yeah,
jail.
yeah. And the other thing I remembered is that, he, one of the things that he did in Iron Man 2 is he flew in ice cream from San Francisco. And, what's one of the most famous desserts in SF? Ghirardelli's, which was in Shang-Chi's, yeah, I'm saying one, the Shang-Chi trailer. There you go. There's two
Oh, by
different Shang-Chi
Disney.
connections. Yep. Oh, it's
Ice
Ghirardelli's
cream.
at
What are your
Disney.
connections to this just
Yeah,
ice cream?
Ghirardelli. Well, the
The
Ghirardelli like ice
Ghirardelli's
cream.
ice cream.
Gear. Okay,
Yeah.
what? Okay, I'm sorry. Disney doesn't.
Now, I like your Justin Hammer take. That's a great twist on it. So it would be a fun thing if that turned out to be it.
Yeah, if Justin
But
Hammer ends
I'm
up being the
still
power
holding on
broker.
to dear life that it's Zola. I want it to be
Oh,
Zola.
I
yes.
know. I
I
know.
want it to be him.
Yeah.
He is someone, but then he's no one at the same time because
Right.
he's
Yeah.
just an AI this entire time, and he's been the one that's been manipulating everything. And then maybe the Mandarin is, associated with them to bring that tie-in. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to reveal once we get that and who the power broker
Let me
is, what
look
are the
this up real quick.
motivations, why is he or she doing what they're doing. But yeah, it's going
No,
to.
I love the Zola theory too, but I was
Everybody
thinking
loves
about it
Zola.
more. Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be Mephisto again. Like, if I was so on
Right.
board with that.
I know.
Not
I
because
don't
of you,
know.
Eric. I just saying like, you know what, like, and Zola would make sense because he's tied to Captain America in that story. And I love how in the show they're working in so many parts from the score, from Henry Jackman's score to other side characters, and to bring him back with the body of the TV. Oh, sign me up. That would be legit.
Okay.
Bring him back as the body with the TV.
Exactly.
I'm gonna steal one half of the
Okay.
story, and I want to believe it's the sister now, because that'd be really sick. Because I feel like it's
But that was your theory. I was repeating. Yeah.
Okay, so never mind. You guys are gonna steal Tom's theory. It's my theory. So I would love for the power broker to end up being the sister, and we see that in September. I know that's so. I feel like they're gonna release who the power broker is by the 6th episode for sure. But if they don't, then I'm gonna hold on to that balloon that is the sister, and that'd be really tight because she's trying to get redemption.
I'm gonna be super surprised if when we're watching this episode tonight,
Oh, they haven't even seen the finale yet?
that we just saw in the Shang-Chi trailer.
What are they talking about?
Just because like Tony Leung is a big name in a lot of films. These actors, and if it's just someone who's like, oh, you had to remember them from the trailer, I think people would be like, wait, hold on, who is that actor? But if it's just like the 10 Rings logo, I think that's something that Marvel fans would be like, holy shit, Shang-Chi was all about that.
So what? They just watched the Shang-Chi trailer and then
I'll get there. But man, Zola, oh my god, look guys, I was looking up
and like maybe previews to the last episode, and that's why they know Sharon Carter called somebody. Like the whole thing that they're talking about is who did Sharon Carter call? Because if it's the power broker, then the question is who's the power broker.
But like, with WandaVision, we had several clues pointing with witchcraft and satanic.
But did they not even watch it? Because they haven't watched it. Like I really don't need to watch this.
Still didn't pan out, right?
It's kind of harder to see in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I was like hoping it'd be as like kind of easy, I guess, whatever to read as WandaVision was, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of hard because there's also so many different branches to it that I'm like, because the last scene with Torres in the last episode, I was just like, oh, so he's just gonna become Falcon, now we're gonna Falcon him. I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So there's just so much it could be. I'm sorry, Zola hasn't done it.
Well, I don't think you will, but I think what we're discovering with these first two Disney Plus series is that the arc of this series is being crafted by showrunners and writers. We're just trying to tell.
Okay, so it sounds like they didn't even watch the last episode yet.
With WandaVision was one.
So,
With Falcon Soldier, it's about Sam understanding the meaning of
oh,
worthy of carrying it and whether he feels like he's the right guy.
let me look at the info on this. Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings trailer offers connection with Falcon Winter Soldier. Leaves many loose ends unanswered. Questions regarding Madripoor, Power Broker, Black Widow in the episode. Explore Falcon Winter Soldier final episode and next steps for the MCU. Yeah, that's what I thought. So why are they talking like they didn't see the last episode? Okay.
Tom, I gotta give you some credit for the really great connection with us and Hammer.
All right.
Seeing the connections there with the power broker, and but also bringing up the Zola training there because I think we all want to do Zola. But you gotta have your safety theory and your safety theory, It's like a flying column. And then Jessica, I think you were the first one to bring up the idea that the sister of Shang-Chi's sister being as important as she is, and that was someone who barely appeared in the Shang-Chi trailer. But man, if she can be connected, if she can be the power broker, I think that would be a really cool role for her as well. So we give you a point as well.
Yeah, everything's pink with these on, and it's hey, but I'm coming in for the loss.
All right.
Everything in roses and glasses, eventually you're gonna get a headache. Right?
It's true. Oh,
Nostalgia is a poison.
damn, you my therapist, man.
Build a life without me, 'cause you're mine still.
Secret Invasion. Everyone's in the show now. We're gonna talk about what we think they're doing there, but first we want to thank some people and tell you about some stuff we're excited about. We're excited to announce that we have a new Falcon and Winter Soldier inspired shirt in our latest Obsession collection over at newrockstarsmerch.com. This is a Zemo inspired design. It looks great. We brushed this guy out based on the first half of the season. It seeks to answer the question of who's really pulling the strings. Now there is a limited supply, so you gotta grab one
skip that.
Now lift that weight off your shoulders. Upstart is the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personalized loan
Oh
all
my god.
online. Whether it's
Another one. So many
high
commercials.
internet activity, I protect my devices with ExpressVPN. It's an app for your computer, smartphone that encrypts all of your network data and tunnels it through
Another
a
one.
secure VPN. Game of Thrones, Emilia Clarke, Daenerys Stormborn, both of them are going to be in undisclosed roles in the show. Now, we already knew Kingsley Benadir was going to be playing the villain of the series. On top of Nick Fury and Taylor's returning. You could have told me Samuel Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn were in the show and no one else, and I would watch it. On top of that, we got all these other big names who are filling in. So, meanwhile, we're seeing scrolls everywhere in the MCU. There was the one who appeared in the WandaVision post-credit scene, another scroll appeared in the Loki trailer, and then lately in the Falcon the Winter Soldier, we got Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. So in the MCU, she has a role in the Secret Invasion 2 comic. She's actually one of the first people who gets swapped out for a scroll that Nick Fury catches up on, and he realizes that this whole Secret Invasion is underfoot. So I want to ask you guys, who do you think everyone is playing, or who, like, start to cast some of these people for me, and how do we think recent events are setting up the Secret Invasion to really take over the whole MCU?
Is it fair to say that everybody's a scroll?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Well, that's going to be a scroll. That'll be a scroll. I mean, my thing that I've taken from this with Secret Invasion, obviously Nick Fury's going to kind of be the linchpin for all of this because he has the history going back to Captain Marvel and understanding of the scrolls in this world. I think this will obviously be our introduction to some of the bad scrolls that we haven't seen yet. And
Yeah,
we're going to find out that over time they have just
talking about um, the whole Captain America or Nick Fury thing. I think it was at the end of Spider-Man 2, Far From Home, that we saw the space station that Nick Fury's in, and awfully reminiscent. And I don't hear enough people talking about it, and maybe just because it's too soon or something. But Nick Fury in the comics, he was white Nick Fury, not black Nick Fury. Um, he had like aged in a space station and ultimately became the bad guy. Now people have ever since Spider-Man 2 came out, which I don't know if that was last year or 2 years ago. It's probably 2 years ago now. So for the past couple of years, um, Spider-Man Far From Home, ever since that trailer, I was like, oh, okay, that's the direction that they're going. We're going with we're gonna set up somehow some sort of evil Nick Fury, and I don't mean like bad, like twisting his mustache kind of bad, but I mean like where Nick Fury is gonna become the antagonist for one reason or another. Um, which is super interesting and things like that. But I just think it's interesting that that everybody who I watch, as far as like comics go, comic books, including like these new Rockstar guys that I'm listening to, and like Comics Explained and all that, nobody's sitting here talking about Nick Fury and how he's probably gonna end up being like this bad guy for one reason or another. Whether it's because he's actually a bad guy, whether he ends up being a Skrull impersonating Nick Fury, and making moves for the sake of the Skrull and not necessarily humans, hence setting up like a bad Nick Fury. But either way, Nick Fury's gonna play an antagonistic role towards either Earth or or the heroes. Now, in the comics, he just played a straight up bad guy for one reason or another. I don't really know. Um, like he just played a bad guy, and it was like, oh, I guess he's a bad guy. Like, I didn't read the comics, so I don't know the details of it. But no one's talking about that. And here they are. They're talking about, scrolls. Everyone wants to talk about Secret Invasion. And it's like, yeah, Secret Invasion was its own story of scrolls taking over. But the big thing about the scrolls right now is Nick Fury up in that space station. And the only reason why you have like Nick Fury in a space station is because of the storyline of like Nick Fury being the bad guy. And it's like, it almost kind of makes sense of like you have the secret invasion of aliens invading who are partnered with Nick Fury up in the space station right now, who in the comics plays an antagonistic role. All the while we're setting up Young Avengers or New Avengers or whatever you want to call it. They're setting up a new Avengers team, as well as, there's a lot of pointing towards Dark Avengers. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, are they going to go where this Elaine from Seinfeld is going to be setting up for Dark Avengers, and then when the Dark Avengers are these fake heroes of Earth, like the Skrulls are invading in order to like help, and Nick Fury is playing an antagonistic role only because people think that the Dark Avengers are really the good guys, and Nick Fury foiling their plans makes him look like the bad guy, but he's really the good guy, but he looks like the bad guy. Like, I'd be interested in knowing like what direction they're taking it in, but nobody's talking about Nick Fury. Like, anytime they talk about him and anybody mentions him, they're just like, oh yeah, he's up in the space station. And it's like, well, yeah, he's there, but also like he's with the Skrulls, and everyone's talking about Skrulls, and because it's like Iron Man said, Nick is the agent. His secrets have secrets. It's hard to say whether or not, like, I want to say that Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury has Earth's best intentions in mind. It's what makes the greatest villains, by the way. So it's like, yeah, man, it's just going to be interesting to see which way they take it. But nobody's talking about it. And it's like, I feel like I should talk about it, but, I don't really have a platform for it. So I'm just going to say it here and now. But yeah, I mean, with New Avengers being set up, or Young Avengers, whatever it is, but, you have the young cast of, like, Isaiah Bradley's nephew, WandaVision's kids, and you have this new captain, and then Hawkeye I think is going to set up like the daughter. Like, they're setting up the Young Avengers, and then they may also be setting up the Dark Avengers. So you might have these two Avengers teams kind of running around while the Skrulls are slowly, like, increasing in population on the planet. So it's just like, man, I don't know. There's a lot going on, but, I think it'll be awesome. I also think about, like, the Fantastic Four, and how it's like, okay, we have the Skrulls in a space station floating above head, and the whole reason why Fantastic Four got their powers was on a space mission. So now that we don't have Tony Stark to handle, like, super technology things anymore, that could be the reason why, we send the Fantastic Four team family up in space, is to go do like reconnaissance, or maybe just go as emissaries to speak with the scrolls or something like that, and something goes wrong, and then that's how we get Doom and the Fantastic Four. Um, but a lot of interesting things could be coming from this space station, and no one's really talking about it outside of like the scroll invasion, which I think is the most obvious of all the things. It's like push that theory and to the next level, and talk about how like things can things can differ from the comic books. Because yeah, man, that's how you set up a trilogy. You have Young Avengers, that's one trilogy. Dark Avengers, that's another trilogy, and then you have the Nick Fury stuff. So which will be misunderstood or something. Either way.
They've infiltrated everything, even at the highest of levels. The skulls or scrolls, excuse me, are there. So that's where I'm taking from it. So when you say castings like this, when you talk Olivia Colman, when you say Amelia Clark, I'm thinking I would be bummed if they weren't scrolls, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't surprise me if Kingsley isn't, just because he's a villain. Maybe he's a human that's manipulating everything that's been going on in the background, right? So I'm pretty excited for it because this is clearly going to change your perception of the MCU, because there's a pretty good chance there's going to be a prominent character that we've seen in the past. Turns out it was a scroll the whole time. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm excited.
I think I agree and disagree. That's every time. That's anytime I enter any conversation. I agree. Well, I do. I think it's gonna be the same kind of math where I'm like, oh, this one of them has to be a human, but I think that fifth one's gonna be Olivia Colman. And I think ultimately Olivia Colman, because she's the crown, she's the favorite, she's playing, and like even in Fleabag, she's just like this woman that holds so much power, and her just like her presence is already like not like egotistical, but it's just like I demand respect. So I think she's gonna be a director, someone that even if like Nick Fury comes back, he's gonna have to talk to, and she's gonna be like, no, we're not doing this. I don't know what director or what. There's so much people.
How about Abigail Brand, director
There
of
you go.
Sword?
There you go. I did. Thank you. Thanks. I should have said that. My fault. I claim it. God damn it. I should have said that. I didn't think about that. I was like, I don't know who it is. The person that people have been begging for in freaking WandaVision. So I think it could be, yeah, it could be her. But then I also think like Amelia Clark would probably play. Well, I assume that Kingsley would be the Super Scroll, the Kolar, whatever. I just assume he'd be like the strongest scroll of them all. And then I assume that Amelia Clark would play the Queen Bronte or whatever, because she's also important and she's pretty cool.
So
But I
Olivia
do
Clark's
think
gonna be
that
in the
what we're
MCU
seeing
now.
with, I think Falcon and Winter Soldier will help with the Super Soldier Serum and how there's a bunch of random superhumans in the world. That's the people that they're taking and like dissecting and trying to like mimic. They're trying to mimic all the super soldiers that we have now seen in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Does this game help anything? But
Yeah, I was
think
missing it, but now I get it. Thanks for
okay.
that.
So I get that's where that came from.
No, I'm gonna agree with both of you. I think that they're most likely maybe they'll play humans though, but I think it might be the Skrulls most likely. I was thinking the same thing as you just said that. Things like that here would be maybe a Super Skrull that we could be setting him up for more roles in the Fantastic Four, which is now coming down the line. Because the Skrulls really coming to a head now in the MCU. That's gotta tie into the Fantastic Four at some point. And people were thinking Reed Richards was gonna be in WandaVision. I was like, that's a little early, maybe, but I think
I was
we're
that
still.
believer.
I was like, I really don't think they would. So now though, now I'm like, okay, now we could be starting to set some chess pieces in place for the Fantastic Four. And it's funny, before Amelia Clark was announced, I was like, oh, maybe Julia Louis-Dreyfus' Val would
Don't
be
go build a
right,
life
because
without
you know,
me, cause
she
you're
as a
mine still.
she as a Skrull in the
Cause
comics,
she don't
maybe she
wanna
was
go
strong
to
with the
sleep,
universe
she
too. And then
ain't
if they make her have a relationship with Nick Fury, that would add more stakes to Nick Fury finding out she's a scroll and how that comes to a head in that show. But now that they've got Daenerys on board, like, oh well, she's got to be right. And Olivia Colman, you know, another queen on the show. Like, so maybe Olivia Colman will be like the queen scroll. She's like in charge of everything. Yeah, Daenerys is like the up and coming young queen that's going through her own will, and the strength will end up taking over, and then Daenerys will be the one to invade Earth and start all of this stuff. But yeah, so I like both those things. I think it's going to be somewhere in between there.
That's the one thing that I'm confused about is when Contessa showed up in Falcon and Winter Soldier, I was like, where is she going? And I'm still like very confused. Like, yeah, she's gonna be in. Well, do you know? You know,
Again, I'm just holding on to my hope, and I'm sure it'll be crushed when episode 6 comes out. I think she's acting she's acting as a lieutenant for Thunderbolt Ross. I think she's putting
That's
together.
what I'm thinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, I was so confused. I was like, where is the character gonna go with this? I was so confused when she showed up.
Obviously, we know the legacy that potentially she could show up in Secret Invasion and everything on that, but it seems to me the bigger play, especially since we know she's supposed to be in Black Widow. We saw the conversation she had with John Walker. We know where Zemo is headed to the raft, which is controlled by Ross. It almost seems like she's acting on his behalf to set up his own group to be able to do the things that Falcon and Bucky would be unwilling to do.
Right. Yeah. We have when we're taping this, it will be tomorrow when it comes out. But by the time you're watching this, it'll be yesterday's video. Yeah. I tried to piece together all the clues we saw for how she could be involved in the Thunderbolt plot. And to me, it just seems like the fact that she's eager to recruit John Walker, a super soldier, do stuff guy.
Oh, you know what?
And the fact that
Yeah, let me work on the sand this way.
strands of things that are going.
Now that I have like the main layout of the sand with the shading and all that stuff, now let me actually like build that texture. I've been trying to figure out how the hell to do the sand for the longest time, and now I think I got it figured out.
Abigail Brand, they didn't want to just have two similar sounding new stunt castings in the
Oh wait, let me grab the red pencil for this.
and screenwriting, you kind of try to change up your character's names, which is good. Yeah.
One other theory that I had that I'm wondering is I agree that Marvel's really been planting the seeds for some kind of scroll action. Like every property we've had up to this point has a scroll stinger, if not part of the movie itself. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking kind of like the comics ended Civil War to kind of lead into Secret Invasion. My other theory that relates to the Winter Soldier is, what if Sharon Carter, who's maybe the power broker, she's obviously broken bad, she's evil. What if she will be revealed to be a Skrull? That could explain the bad behavior.
Everyone's a Skrull now.
If she dies in this next episode, which you might already know if you're watching, or if not, it's coming out tonight. If she dies,
Okay, so they haven't seen this yet. What the fuck? So they saw it early. So they're trying to talk about it without spoiling it. That I was like, why is this conversation so weird? Okay, so yeah, now they're talking about the last episode. Good. I was in like listening, so I skipped that last video after listening to it for far too long.
Even that drug still beats. Friendship. It's the power of friendship. I'll miss these guys. Captain America and I love that. Oh my God. That's amazing.
Welcome back to New Rockstars, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 6 of
Steve Rogers gave me this shit.
Like,
I'm official.
so
He's
yeah.
so he's fantastic. All this stuff with Sam's journey over whether or not to create that shield, if it could just be that as a show, I'd
Right.
A plus. You know, like what an interesting story. What like an emotional journey. But a lot of the stuff on the periphery of the show is just leaving us a little confused as to what the intent was. So here we're just gonna try to go through it together because I'm not here trying to crap on the show or anything. I know writing TV, editing TV, especially during a pandemic, is really hard. So you have to end up making certain compromises, certain choices, choosing what your priorities are. So I think we're just gonna go through what exactly they mean by finale. This whole scene with Sharon Carter. Who is she on the phone with at the end there? And what has been her plan this whole time? Let's see if we can figure it out together. So,
Let's dig into it.
so for episode 6, the Flag Smashers are trying to straight up murder the GRC. It's not just disrupting. Carly takes it a step further. She's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna drive this truck into a big construction pit and set it all on fire." They're like, "Geez, what did I sign up for?" But they are stopped by Bucky, also Sharon Carter, a face mesh chemical weapon tossing Sharon Carter. Yikes!
I was excited to see the face mesh again. I was like, yeah, I'm like, what am I
That was
doing
great.
with this one?
I was excited to see the face smush when she melted that dude.
Right? I was like, oh my god, this is some really just violent stuff. Like his face was just like, yes, I've been there. That's what I get for hugging a random white lady on the street by accident. Never do that. But that's what happens when you don't social distance. You need to
That's
face
right. That's right. It's not over yet. No hugs. No touching. But there, of course, also stops most pivotally. Gotta stop making up words. Sam Wilson, once Falcon, now Captain America, in this badass suit that given to him by the Wakandans. He's now proudly going by Captain America. It's so great. John Walker shows up in this fight, and he ultimately chooses to save lives instead of seeking vengeance. Interesting choice there.
Very interesting.
And during this, Sharon Carter reveals herself, we think, to be the power broker in Gene Network. I say we think just because she never explicitly says it, but the context of the scene is yes, she is the power broker. I'm not going to argue that point. And she actually also later kills Harley. And then as Sam brings Harley's body back, he makes this big speech to the GRC leaders with, I love this, perfect video and audio picked up by the nearby
I know, that's all I could think about. I was just like, well, how are you getting this perfect audio right now? That's impossible.
Yeah,
The world needs to watch this speech, whether it's a
yeah, that's what I was talking about. How are they picking up his audio? He wasn't mic'd up or anything like that.
And basically,
I'm glad I'm not the only person who had that gripe.
areas, but he basically conveys Carly's ideals that the people making these decisions for the rest of the world don't truly empathize with the struggle of the people who are being affected by these decisions. It's kind of a Rocky Horror moment where the look, if I can change, you can change, maybe we all can change, and it works. Somewhere Gorbachev was watching this, standing up, standing up.
So yes, I do like this new platform. Yes, let's do more of that. But no, like I love that speech. It was just it's so true because a lot of the times politicians don't consult any of the people that they're making legislation for. So it's just like you guys need to open your eyes. Like, come on, man. Like you're trying to like effectively deport a zillion people to homelessness. Like they don't really know where they're going. So it's just like sit down and think about it, guys. Because the Flag Smashers, even though they're kind of not the most interesting villains, they have points.
Yeah, and it's they often I think you say politicians have to pick winners and losers, and they don't think about people who are going to be losing as a result of these kind of decisions.
That's
Like
true.
you don't have to pick winners and losers in society. You can take a step back and kind of make things that are going to be good for for. And you got to look out for the most vulnerable of society, right? That's if you're going to be making decisions.
Exactly. I mean, I'm sure Vulture would agree with all of this. He'd be like, yeah, fuck the government. Think about us.
He was standing up applauding too, and he's like, and also nice wings.
Right?
Captain America is also flapping his wings, saluting with his wing from that lake in New York. Now, the Flag Smashers, this is the
All right.
hilarious. They were
See, now that's gonna be like the sand texture
Buster, his old butler,
throughout the
white gloves and all,
I'm glad I did that. I was like, man, how am I gonna draw the sand texture? I wasn't even thinking about the texture. I was just like, how am I gonna draw this sand? But that's a good way to break it up, make it random, but also work with the perspective and everything. It's a good thing about sand is it's all random. You know what I mean? So you're not gonna like really mess up. But still, you want to have some sort of base.
It's still nice that they put the flag there. Anyway, moving on. It's just like, yeah, I'm definitely sure there's more of 4 cameras and stuff there to be like, look, this happened. It's Black Captain America before, like, after Steve Rogers.
Bucky fesses up to Mr. Nakajima about what he did to his son, and then they all party back home. That's the kind of party I can't wait to get back into.
I know, right? The cookout, bro. You invited to the cookout, Eric? Just so you know. You invited to the cookout,
I'm
bro.
still invited, even after the theories they came up with through the show.
Hell yeah, because we need theories at the cookout. How can you can't have a cookout without some Marvel theories, bro?
Oh, thank you so much. And then we get this post-credit scene where Sharon gets her pardon from apparently the only guy who works for the U.S. government.
All right.
Full special duty. And
Give me a second. I'll be right back. I got my markers ready to start coloring this sand.
and what her next steps are.
So I'll lay down some base with that, and then
Also, what's next for her and for Captain
definitely be doing a whole lot more color pencil to cover all that ground.
As well as for Bucky and US Agent John Walker, what's happening? When are we going to see all these characters again, and what's going to be their mission? But before we dive into it, real quick, I am wearing our latest obsession shirt, Anarchy Assembled, which you can get at NewYorkStarsMerch.com. But we also just released a new CO design. Who's really pulling the strings? Both designs are getting low on stock, and some sizes are close to selling out. So grab one fast before they're gone. And if you get the Anarchy Assembled shirt, as is always the case for Inside Marvel, you will unlock an additional option to write in a custom shout out that will appear at the bottom of these Inside Marvel after shows. For example, let's see, Miguel Galvan says, how do you think the last episode of Falcon and Soldier will correlate with the upcoming Shang-Chi? I had some thoughts that,
Man, stop calling them Shang-Chi. It's Shang-Chi, man.
what's not. I still think Shang-Chi could be accurate.
Oh yeah,
Forcing it. Just forcing it.
I mean, with your breakdown, you definitely hit the nail on the head there. Like that fight seems to be taking place in Madripoor, and I was doing some research the other day, and I believe that fight was a fight called the Bloodsport.
Forgive me,
Oh, yeah.
It happens once a year. So yeah, I think that we're going to see Shang-Chi in Madripoor at some point.
Another comment, see, Jedediah Hera says if Bucky married Sarah, then he and Sam would be stuck together for life. That's true. I am shipping those two hard. I want to see
Yes, I just want Bucky to marry Sarah just to spite Sam. I just think that would just be
They
hilarious.
have to spend every Thanksgiving together. Sorry, I need to see them in each other's lives.
It's like, where's Uncle Buck?
All right.
And Robert Cutler says, GMA canon, Eric likes canon, new obsession shirt canon, I'm canon. Yeah, I 100% agree. That's accurate logic.
Eric is 100% canon. In real life and the MCU and the GMA canon.
Well, they're gonna fire me out of the canon now after all this. Oh lordy, lordy. All right, MC, what's our first What the Falcon?
Well, the first What the Falcon of the day, Eric, is how the Falcon is sharing part of the power broker.
All right, I gotta take the L here because I'm not gonna hide. I'm not
I'm
gonna
gonna
say
take the L with you,
anything.
bro. You're not taking the L alone. I will take the L with you because I was right there with you when we were saying it, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I firmly did not believe Sharon Carter was herself the power broker. I was
Mm.
working for the power broker. Instead, it was I thought maybe it was connected to Ten Rings or some other shadowy crime lord. But instead, this episode proves me wrong, as I've been proved wrong by pretty much every movie I have made predictions for. People are joking, saying like, "Oh, Eric's over 2." It's like, no, my friend, I've been doing this for like 5 years. I'm like 100 for 350, maybe. Still not a good record that I'm proud of, but I'm not in this for accuracy, obviously. The reviews I pitch, but just like kind of the most fun ways I think this might go based off.
Listen, you're talking with one of the most wrong people on the internet. Me, like, I have been so wrong about Guardians of the Galaxy stuff in the past. So, like, next to me, you're perfectly fine, dude. Don't even worry about it.
We're just sharing a debunked head. We've been debunked,
Yeah.
and straight off top and bottom of the
Debunked bed. That's good.
So what did this episode kind of explain to Sharon Carter? We get this moment with Carly Morgenthau where Sharon wants Carly to come work for her again. None of the other people are around, just the two of them, it seems. But then Carly starts to say Sharon only wants her for power. How much power does Harburger have without her? And Sharon kind of gives this interesting kind of look and says, well, more than you. And then Batroc overhears this and says, so you're the fellow that wrote that. And then he says that he's going to threaten to tell the whole world about this unless he makes her 4 times as much. And then Sharon's like, I don't like blackmail, and then shoots him, killing him. And then later, hides, covers this up by shooting and killing Carly. And then at the end of the episode, Sharon gets her pardon, but then shadily calls her contacts to be ready for state secrets and prototype weapons. So, who do you think Sharon is calling here? Maybe one of her lieutenants, maybe another criminal contact. Could she be calling people? I mean, honestly, it seems like she's connected to everybody who wants weapons in the MCU, whether it be the Ten Rings, AIM, Justin Hammer's old organization, his contacts, Justin Hammer himself. If Norman Osborn ever gets introduced to the MCU, he's probably going to be on the Rolodex of the Power Broker.
I mean, I honestly think that the show is establishing her as the power broker. And like you said, even though we haven't exclusively gotten her saying, yes, I am the power broker. I'm Sharon Power Broker Carter. You can just call me Sharon Secrets, because that's just what I'd be doing. But we haven't got that exactly.
Sharing secrets.
I would be hard pressed to think that they would end the series with being like, oh no, she wasn't really the power broker. It seems like she is the power broker. And she's talking to.
Yeah, this is what I was worried about.
Like, hey, get ready, because I just got promoted, and I'm about to get my whole job back, so like I'm about to,
All right, so maybe I stick to the shadow areas. I was worried about running out of ink, or this marker drying up a bit.
She is actually the true Power Broker because,
So maybe I'll just stick to the
Power Broker. No, I mean, part of me wishes
the
they
the,
would
the
make
pits that have.
big glaring evidence. She killed Batroc over his threat to tell the world that she's a power broker, and by killing him, she proves that she must be the true power broker because she needs to stay anonymous. That's her big source of her power is her anonymity. She wouldn't have killed Batroc. She wouldn't have cared if Batroc thought she was the power broker if she wasn't the true power broker, right? She would have just called his bluff. Go ahead, tell her who you want. I'm definitely not the power broker.
it's like you're wrong, but like whatever, it will help the real power broker if you just spread that around, so whatever.
I think it would help to go back through this season and try to track what Sharon Carter's plan has been throughout all this as a power broker. So looking at it, stepping back from it, as a power broker, Sharon must know that her greatest power comes from anonymity. So she's been claiming that she might work for the power broker, she's at least in his orbit, but all the time, all along, she was secretly her own boss. Self-employed, this one. But we have to ask, how long has Sharon been the power broker? Because Zemo said that he was aware of him only by reputation and seemed to have run afoul of the power broker in the past. The problem is, Zemo has been in prison this whole time. And he was in prison since Civil War. And during Civil War, Sharon Carter seemed to be just working for the CIA. She had not broken bad yet. So Sharon Carter might have had a double identity as a power broker way back then, but also based on her line to Sam and Bucky in episode 3, this whole life of crime didn't really start until she was labeled as a criminal in Civil War and then had to leave the country. So it's not really clear when this began. It seems like the show is saying this was relatively recently, sometime after Civil War when this began. So
I was thinking that there could potentially be a possibility that maybe a power broker existed sometime before Sharon went on the run, and then Sharon deposed the power broker, and because no one knew what the power broker looked like, she'd be like, oh, I can just be the power broker now because it's easy because no one knows what he looks like.
I like that.
That is a possibility, but but we don't really know at this point.
As the power broker, Sharon Carter wants to wield influence via things like the Super Soldier Serum, but also other valuable assets like stolen art, prototype weapons, state secrets. In order to do that, she has to be able to fly under the radar, and ideally, she needs to be back in the United States in her old job at the CIA with all the contacts and information she had at her disposal. So Sharon, at some point in the past, hired Carly and Dovich to work security for her in Madripoor to protect her interests in the Super Soldier Serum project, but they ended up stealing that serum. So as she tried to track down Carly, Sam and Bucky and Zemo arrived, looking for the same thing. So Sharon must have seen an opportunity to use these guys to help her find Carly and ultimately get her pardon out of that deal. questions.
Yes.
Like, why did Sharon Carter leave Sam, Bucky, and Zemo to Nagel? If she wanted to collaborate to find the Flag Smashers, couldn't she have just told them what she, as a power broker, already knew about the Flag Smashers' past whereabouts? Or the user satellites? Like, why would she expose her precious chemist to someone like Zemo?
Exactly. Those are really good questions. I think, yeah, I think she was just really just trying to just keep that power broker thing a secret. And she was just like, you know what, I'm not the power broker. See, here's Nagel. Like, don't even consider me.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but
And there
yeah,
are
those
other
are fun.
ways, you know, but this is just what they end up doing. And also, if she's a power broker, why didn't she have any backup while facing the assassins in those shipyards?
Exactly.
Like, if this was all an act, who was it for? Sam
Yeah.
and Bucky were inside. They were not watching her in that moment. She was going at it alone on all these guys, despite having a criminal empire of armed people to take down. But she was going alone to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, she, as a power broker, she must have an army of people. We saw her militants that she checked in with in that
Yeah.
tunnel last episode or the episode before. Why weren't any of them? Why didn't they get any backup?
Maybe one of Sharon Carter's new powers as a power broker is that she can see when the audience is watching. And so she was like, I haven't put on a show for everyone at home. Because they're going to find out I'm the power broker.
Yeah, I gotta pull those new rock stars nerds. Like idiots.
Well
Well
done.
done.
We're watching. We got to kill some
Mission
guys.
accomplished. But furthermore, I mean, we have to address how could Sharon have built up this empire in this limited amount of time? I mean, Endgame says she blipped. I know a lot of folks are arguing with me on Twitter saying that that missing person screen could have been faked and that Sharon Carter was faking her dusting. Maybe that's the truth now. I think the show's ultimate answer to all of these questions is that's just how badass Sharon Carter is. Like, this is someone who can fool the Avengers into thinking she dusted, fool the criminal world into thinking into thinking there's some other power broker, man behind the curtain who's not her, all while she builds a criminal empire with hundreds of millions of dollars of stolen artwork, along with satellites, super soldier serum, chemical weapons that melt people, Black Widow face mask mesh, and the ability to get into the U.S. undetected, all while single-handedly John Wicking through dozens of assassins. I could.
Maybe she isn't just that good. I don't know. But it
She
is sort
clearly
of
is.
like a
She must be
weird
that good.
Batman effect
Yeah.
in some weird way. It's just like I'm just a human like tank, and I can just do anything. It's just it's just kind of weird.
That is the truth. That it's weird, but it's true apparently. And I could try to.
Here, let me start on this side for this one,
Clearly good on the show because we talked about this. All
just in
these
case the
Sharon
ink
Carter
starts
and the Flag
dying,
Smashers just seems super
like
rushed,
it's been doing.
uneven, weirdly edited, and I do that to compare them to all the other really good stuff in this show. Like everything with Sam's journey with the Shield, Isaiah Bradley, so well written, so well edited. This is what these same TV producers are capable of doing when they're telling the story that they want to tell. Just rewatch it and compare the scenes with the Flag Smashers. Just look how fast all this exposition drops, how inelegantly they drop what their next step and what their mission is. You can get away with a little bit of that in TV shows, but if you have to do it this much, it means stuff was changed. And I'm dying to hear what the showrunners say was the original plan or what they intended the Flag Smashers and Sharon Carter to be all about.
It would be so great to get like a full length documentary of both like WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter
Oh
Soldier,
yeah.
just to see just how much COVID-19 just messed things up because
Yeah.
it really did.
They have that BTS documentary for WandaVision on Disney Plus, but they don't go too deep into what was changed because that's kind of like they don't want to go too much into how the sausage gets made because it kind of exposes how hard this all is and how many sacrifices that can be made. And ultimately, I think, and they're right that general viewers don't care that much about it, but that is changing now with things like the Snyder Cut. The narrative of Justice League in 2017 was what was changed, what was supposed to be in this, until years later we get the original intent, the original vision of what this was supposed to be. And for better or worse, that's the world we live in now. I'm not crazy about that, but that's like when you change this much and you have this kind of weird finished product with this subplot, people are gonna have questions.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. There could be a huge virus subplot that had to be removed, leaving everyone connected to that subplot now really confusing and finished to edit. But I do have to say, by capping this series with post-credit scene, that shows intent. That means the producers are saying this is what they all wanted it to build up to in that post-credit Sharon Carter. Like, I'm now trying to wonder what they were setting up with that. They didn't have to include that post-credit scene. It was already pretty clear that Sharon was the power broker. That you could have included her pardon scene in the midst of that closing montage. But with that post-credit scene, there seem to be a couple different things that it could be setting up.
I mean, like, it could potentially be setting up Sharon as a villain in Armor Wars.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, and you brought that up. I was like, yeah, it's totally that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of people are saying Secret Invasion that she might be a Skrull, but if anything, this makes it less likely she's a Skrull to me because she used that mask to hide her identity. If she was a Skrull shapeshifter, she would not mess around with that kind of tech. It'd be like beneath her. She could shapeshift into anything if she was an actual Skrull. Not saying she won't be in Secret Invasion. She could totally show up in Secret Invasion. I just don't think she's going to be playing the role of Skrull. She's now going to be playing this role of vague power broker, and
Yes.
that's what she's in the MCU now.
It's the new Trevor Slattery.
In a way, yeah. But I do think Armor Wars is where we'll see her next, just because this idea of prototype weapons. I think that's what it's going to be fought over. Rhodey's going to be part of that, and we're going to see it's going to be the war of superhero technology. When things that are derived from Tony Stark's tech fall into the wrong hands, which I would argue has been the story of the whole MCU up until this point. But we're going to just see a true Rhodey-led story about that. I think Sharon is now looking like going to be the villain of Armor Wars. If I
I wonder if Sharon is going to go after White Vision now. Because White Vision is a loose element, and now that she's stealing secrets, she's going to know that White Vision is on the loose and try to go get him probably.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
Yeah, White Vision might be the ultimate MacGuffin of Armor Wars. They're trying to convince White Vision to fight on their side, There's going to be a lot of different people who are making ship-based metaphors to him to try to convince him to join their team. Like, so I hear you like shipbuilding, huh? Well, look at this. And it's going to be like a Napoleon Dynamite scenes. Like, I bet you ain't seen one of these before. Like, wow.
It's like, oh, hey, Vision, have you ever heard of the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria? Those are some pretty great ships.
Recalibrating. Tell me
Changing
more.
allegiances.
We'll be talking far more about Sharon Carter as time goes on. But there are more questions we want to get to from the show. But first, we want to thank some people who helped us make this. Starting with our friends at Bespoke Post. Bespoke Post is a new lineup of essential box of awesome collections for guys guaranteed to upgrade your life. The Retreat box comes with a hammock, which is perfect for the spring because by the time you get into the outdoors, you will be ready for a nap. Whether or not you're out taming the wilderness or taking your home bars or pro-level hikes, Bespoke Post only sends guys the best stuff every month. No matter what you're into, Box of Awesome has you covered. From style and grooming goods to barware, cooking tools, and outdoor gear, Box of Awesome has collections for every part of your life. To get started, take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers will help them pick the right Box of Awesome for you. They release new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. The broom and flight boxes are the new ones that look
This is
really
commercial.
cool. It's free to sign up, and you can
I get focused into the art. I'm like, oh wait, this is commercial.
looks at more than just your credit score, like your income. With traditional therapy. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than she was kind of teasing that she was involved with it, wasn't involved with it, but was. Do you think she had a hand in that?
But potentially, I mean, I feel like they wouldn't put that line in there if she didn't have something to do with it. And she was she was very quick to pick up like, oh, this explosion happened, Zemo. This is Zemo. It's straight up Zemo. So maybe she provided, she worked in conjunction with Zemo's butler to provide him with the explosives or something to make it happen, or maybe she is trying to put this Thunderbolts thing together.
Yeah.
So she's like, all right, I do a little something for Zemo. Zemo does a little something for me. And it's everyone's best interest to have the Flag Smashers dead anyway. So I'm sure she wasn't sad. She was involved to do it, but it's sort of still up in the air. What do you think, Eric? just class words and then plans explosions.
I just really think really well. Or you an immediate explosion thing? No, no, it's Alfred. It's Alfred. Shuts the chat today. No.
It's like, oh, he puts the bombs away. Oh.
Sadly was bombs away. Yeah, so that's why I think Val was involved with that. I think I wanted to see a conversation between Val and Zemo on the raft there, just to kind of tie that together. But as off-screen producer Brandon said, it seemed like they had Julia Louis-Dreyfus for one day and then just shot both her scenes in that location with those other two actors. That's all they had for her. But I think you're right. I think that we could still be seeing something Thunderbolts related. If there was that link between Val and with Zemo on the raft, something overseen by Thaddeus Ross, someone who showed up in the credits of the show but wasn't at all referenced otherwise in the show. Why did you put him in the credits?
Yeah, that's such a weird thing. It's just like,
Everyone else in the credits pretty much came up. Isaiah Bradley came up, Power Broker came up, all these other little clues in the credits came up.
I wonder if either he was cut or his role was cut, and that maybe he had a bigger role in like the if COVID never happened cut of this. But yeah, it is super weird to have his name brought up at all. All right, so first, what Falcon of the day is what the Falcon is next for John Walker as U.S. agent. I mean, like, are we supposed to like him now because it was sort of random that like he sort of ended the last episode with like I'm crazy and I'm about to do some crazy things to avenge Lamar, and now he's just sort of just like I guess I'm buddying up with the people that broke my arm. I guess this is
Right.
fine.
He's quoting Lincoln,
Right.
and saying
He got his wicked quotes like, oh, well, he was making his new wax shield.
yeah.
Like, it's really weird that, like, they just, it seems to me that they were just like, we're setting John Walker up for something else, so we can't make him look super crazy and super unlikable and, like a villain because we sort of want to set him up as U.S. agent, as this sort of, like, Captain America, quote unquote, but with like some, everything not all right up there.
Yeah, I think that's the problem though with that is like that scene with him bludgeoning that dude to death with the shield is one of the more striking images from the show. And you mean to tell us that we're supposed to now empathize with that character after that? And yes, and now it's like obviously it's gonna be more of an anti-hero, but that moment at the end where he goes, I'm back, I'm back, I'm back. There was no judgment to that.
Yeah.
Scene. I mean, all we know is that he's just working with Val, but it seems like the show's moral conclusions were cloudy at best when it comes to characters like John Walker and Carly Morgenthau. Like,
Yeah.
Carly's own flag smashers turned on her and said, whoa, you look freaking crazy terrorist. And then, like, at the end, Sam cradles her body just because she says she's sorry. And then argues
She says she
with
was
the
sorry.
senators. The senators suck too. I get it. Argue with them. I think his speech was justified to them. But I mean, I'm just worried about the bad takes out there where people are gonna be like, wait, so you're saying we're allowed to disrupt votes by government leaders and senators, and we're not terrorists if we do that, and we throw smoke bombs in a government building and try to kill them? That's okay as long as our ideals, as long as we're the victims of the situation. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't like the way that was written at all.
It's like they technically sort of got what they wanted through violence in a way. Like their voices were heard, and then
That's funny because, yeah, before I started the stream, I was listening to Fat Man Beyond. Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin were talking about that same exact thing, how the bad guys in Falcon and Winter Soldier got what they wanted.
But it's just like what I don't
I didn't see it that way, but I could see how it's seen that way. It's pretty obvious once you think about it. I didn't think about it like that.
Off a freaking edge into a ravine. Like, it's okay to do that.
You know, Falcon was aligned with the Flag Smashers, what they were doing. He just didn't agree with how they did it. So the fact that Sam like pulled through for them in the end, as far as like getting their goals accomplished, was more of like a Sam thing to me than it was a Flag Smasher thing. It was just Flag Smashers were going about it the wrong way.
This show, that it's a point Sam makes in the speech. He does say like, you don't want to see what the next version of Carter Morgan does look like. I totally get it. And the MCU is okay to have us empathize with the sentiment or the philosophy of the villains, as we saw with Killmonger. Black Panther did such a good job of that. With Thanos, like a lot of people were saying Thanos did nothing wrong, but like results of it, and then we get these looks of judgment from her own team, and like you include that scene where her team looks like they're about to kill her, right? Looks like they're about to just like push her off that ledge, be like, I don't want to fight alongside this person anymore, and then Sam pretty much validates her entire argument, and I just don't. I think that part of the speech was like, ooh, move on, Sam, move on.
Like, maybe we should talk about this. Let's keep talking about it. Let's keep moving on.
But the same thing with John Walker, though. Like, it's even worse in that case because he is a character who murdered someone in the street. And they kind of punished him last episode, but he says, "I'm back." He looks like someone who hasn't learned anything.
Yeah.
In that final scene, he looks like he's rewarded.
Yeah, I'm still on some fuck that fake cat dude, U.S. agent guy. Like, nah, no thanks.
To me, that is not enough moral redemption.
Nope.
For a character after what
Him trying to save those people wasn't anything. Like, it was like, oh, okay, we see. Like, got a bit of good in you, but he's being played like a fucking fiddle by Elaine.
Like, he obviously really wanted to be Captain America, but like there was no resistance, there's no pushback, there was no conversation about that. And like we only really see like the only person that really reacts to this whole John Walker situation is his wife at the very end of the episode. It's like this is like the lens that we're supposed to be viewing John Walker as of like, oh no, he's getting redemption. Because like, you know, his wife seems to be happy with him and like he seems to be happy that he's back. But it's just like what I don't know. Like, what are we?
Yeah. And you know, these are gripes that we have. Overall, the thematic core of the show is following Sam in his like meeting with Isaiah Bradley. And if you love this show, you love that part of it. We 100% agree. I think that has been so great.
Cause you're
These are
mine
just
still.
big things on the periphery of the show also included that just were not written as well. And I have a feeling that like Malcolm Spellman, who worked on the show, who's the writer of it, didn't necessarily want to tell those other stories, just want to tell Sam's story. That's why he did such a great job with it. Whereas these other things were just kind of marching orders from the studio. Like, we need to have U.S. Agent in this. I want to have the Flag Smashers in this. I want to have, Sharon Carter in this. And then Spellman's probably like, all right.
I guess that's
So if you want to like this show, I don't want to take that away from you. I just feel like the only way you can truly love this show without any kind of reservation is to have some kind of blinders on. And we would be lying to you if we said that this show is perfect, because it's not a perfect show.
yeah, it's definitely not perfect. It's definitely a good time to watch, and like you know, we all enjoy a new MCU thing. We were all nuts about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but we gotta just keep it real. We're not gonna bullshit you guys. Like, it's not 100% perfect, and there are flaws.
Yeah.
So you know, I think if there's
Yeah, let me grab some color pencils. Smooth out this sand now.
It's okay because we understand that there were those COVID-19 limitations.
Right.
It's just a weird time. So the fact that we even got Falcon and Winter Soldier at all is a blessing. So
It's true. And that's what you should keep in mind. That's a very good point.
definitely not hating on it, but like, it's not.
And to that point, MC, our final WTF that we'll talk about in this show, where do you think we will see Cap, Sam, and Bucky go? I mean, I don't mean Cap, Sam, and Bucky. There's no comma there. It's like Captain America, Sam. I want to see,
Yes.
like, what MC title are they going to come back in?
I can see them maybe, you know, hitting Rhodey up with like, hey, thanks for cameoing my show. We're gonna cameo in Armor Wars now, real quick. Just to like with that Sharon Carter connection, maybe Sam and Bucky be like, what's this Power Broker up to? Like, what's going on with like Jared's telling secrets? Like, what's going on? So maybe then, but like, you know, gosh, that's a really good question. What do you think? What do you think they're gonna show up?
I'd be surprised if they showed up in any of the titles that are announced so far. Like, Secret Invasion already has a pretty big cast, and I think one lesson learned we have from both this show and from WandaVision, most Disney Plus shows are only going to do so much, right? So like, we can set up Multiverse of Madness or Thor: Love and Thunder, or whatever. Ultimately, there's still kind of a dividing line there for either the Shield or for Defenders universe on Netflix, but there still is.
All right.
And
Are we sharp?
writing it kind
than that.
I think overall a relationship that Sam's starting to form with Eli Bradley, in the way that Sam kind of just like was. I think we'll see that again. Bucky might show up in Secret Invasion, but again, Secret Invasion has been cast already. I don't think we'll see everyone in the MCU in that, and maybe Armor Wars, as you said. But yeah, I think we're gonna have to wait to see until there's a new, like, currently unannounced Marvel title that these people will show up in. Bucky, maybe in Black Panther 2. That'd be kind of fun to bring back to Wakanda.
That'd be super appropriate because like she does say Iowa. He does say to make yourself scarce for a little bit. So I feel like he will come back eventually. Just to be like, hey guys, it's me, it's your white buddy. I'm back in Africa to hang out with my people. Let me tell you about this cool cooking hours. Just kidding. But yeah, you're totally right. He could totally show up as the White Wolf because I do want to see. I want to see the White Wolf in action.
Yeah, me
so
too.
badly.
Yeah.
So Black Panther 2 will be perfect.
That theory video that you put out a couple weeks ago about like, what Bucky's secret Wakandan history was so cool, and I want to see that as a movie. If you haven't watched the video yet, you would go check that.
You got a White Wolf in the War Dog in Wakanda. Let's get it, everybody. Let's get it.
Well, that is it for this episode of Inside Marvel, this Falcon Winter Soldier after show. But we're not done talking about the show, obviously. First up, we're going to do a Q&A with our listeners on stereo. That video will come out on the channel early next week. And we're also going to have future episodes of Inside Marvel. Next Friday, you're going to hear us talk about all the other loose ends of the show. We're going to give ourselves like a week to think about it, digest it, do a post-season wrap-up question to answer any further questions you have. Go into any other theories that we might have for some of these questions.
Is it the end of this video?
So we want to thank you guys so much for staying with us. It's been a while.
Alright. Episode 6, Easter eggs.
Turns out this isn't a sleeping bag.
Eric Boss, and this is a breakdown of the Falcon the Winter Soldier episode 6, the finale, One World, One People, in which Captain America Sam Wilson dresses up as Home Team Whites, U.S. Agent John Walker.
Home Team Whites.
And Carter did Divine Theories what she did to that.
Yeah, that's a choice description.
This has always been to just go back to the episodes and point out all the interesting details that you might have missed. And this finale is filled with little stuff that you can gnaw on, like Sarah's tiny potato slices or Zemo's gross Turkish delights. Okay, we open on the Flag Smashers' disruption of the GRC vote. Actually, Carly's voiceover here is actually the same line that she spoke in Latvia last episode. Aaron Tillman was more emotional then. Now they use an alternate take where she sounded more resolute and firm. Then a little moment with Bucky that I love. Right, this officer respects Bucky's service and his rank, telling us that some people in this world really do learn from the history, and Cap's Smithsonian exhibits making it an even bigger deal when Isaiah's history will later become restored. Sharon Carter used the same mesh face mask that Natasha used in Winter Soldier. It also appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, while you could see Sharon's suspicious behavior in the post-credit scene as a setup for Secret Invasion, this mask to me signals that she herself is probably not going to be a Skrull, because then she wouldn't really need that kind of cloaking tech, right? But then again, apparently no one cares about Sharon's past history. Whatever. Notice how the Flag Smashers use these smoke grenades that glow green. And then Sharon talks about her deadly mercury vapor, because among other things that she used on that Flag Smasher, that emits a green smoke. And then those locks that they use on the truck doors have 8 claws, and they're strong. They take several strikes of Bucky's vibranium arm to break. Remember, Batroc supplied this gear courtesy of Sharon after she hired him. And Sharon called someone on the phone in the post-credit scene.
Seems like this might be off the menu, but we're about to have full access to government secrets, prototype weapons, you name it.
Thinking one of Sharon's trading partners and the source of this tech could be Oscorp. Normally, I'm hesitant to lean on Spider-Man villains like Green Goblin, Norman Osborn in my MCU theories, since all of those are Sony properties, and Marvel can only do so much with them in non-Spider-Man titles. But Sony did just sign a deal with Disney Plus that makes that kind of future IP sharing a bit more likely. And by something for everyone, Sharon might mean a team of weapons tech manufacturers known for green glowing grenades, a weapon used by Green Goblin, and 8-armed reinforced metal gear that you could see someone like Doc Ock putting together. This comes within a week of Alfred Molina to talk about his role as Doc Ock in Spider-Man No Way Home. But before I continue, thank you to Bessie Shoes for sponsoring this video. Sam Wilson swoops in with his new suit. Yeah, now the music here evokes the Steve Rogers campaign, but is a variant that is unique to Sam. This suit's largely white design reflects Sam's look in the comics when he becomes Cap, including the half cowl. That shield magnetically latches to his back like it did with Steve, and Sam being in white here creates an interesting contrast with U.S. agent John Walker.
It's the same. The black.
Sam as a black man in a role historically seen as a white man, Walker as a white man now donning the obstacle black hats. But Sam does not leave us guessing.
Sorry, wait. Who are Captain America? But Captain America was on the moon.
Yeah, the guy calls back Tori's conspiracy theory that Steve Rogers was on the moon. This theory never gave us an answer as to what happened with old Cap from Endgame. Kind of treated the mystery as more of a joke because I guess these Disney Plus shows can only do so much MCU world building. But right now, I'm just gonna go with Cap is in space with Nick Fury. So as the GRC diplomats are evacuated, listen to this voice blaring over the PA system. Maybe don't announce this while terrorists have infiltrated the freaking building. Like, imagine if that happened at Africa. Maybe don't mentally compare what the Flag Smashers are doing January 6th. Just don't. The Flag Smasher hands Bucky a phone with Carly calling via that Flag Smashers app, the app that Bucky will later use to trap the Flag Smashers. I must have thought a 6-year-old man could work the app. It's not wrong. Carly asks Bucky,
I'm trying to think it's bigger than myself. Have you ever been able to say the same?
I don't think I ever fought for something bigger than myself. That's all I ever tried to do. And I failed twice.
yeah, Bucky fought freaking Thanos, you dummy. His 2 losses, they refer to his losses in Infinity War and in World War II. You could argue, though, I don't really know if it's fair to say he lost that. Really, every fight this dude fights has been over something bigger than himself. Sam subdues Batroc by kick-flipping the shield and then tossing it out the window first to break it before swooping back out to catch it. This is also kind of how he had to enter the building by smashing the window with the shield first. Think of those weapons that just given him a vibranium head covering instead of leaving his scalp weirdly exposed. He wouldn't have to worry about smashing through the glass himself. He's made of vibranium at that point. Sam uses Red Wing to scan the GRC hostages, and on the screen you can see her name, Ayla Perez. His background in the Philippine Air Force and experience flying both Apache and Chinook helicopters. Chinook helicopters are twin rotors that tell Sam that Perez has experience with multiple types of helicopters and that he can trust her to climb it so you can pull it out of a dive. So that would probably be very difficult for anyone other than Tom Cruise to do. Sam saves the NYPD pilot, shielding one with his wings and the cat shield on top, showing how those Huns designed this to be a perfect interlocking vibranium seal. John Walker shows up with his cosplay shield, his Medal of Honor welded on the inside. And notice how the shield has a lighter, more tinny sound than the deeper, mystical hum of the vibranium. As Bucky falls into the construction pit, he screams. Echoing his scream as he fell from the train in the first Cap film, the scream that inspired his Winter Soldier wail, which we have not heard on this show since his Wakandan campfire going clear moment. And since he's no longer haunted, Bucky now stakes the superhero landing. Oh, hey, by the way, our Anarchy Assemble shirt is still available, along with our amazing new Zemo design, though we are running low on supply for both of those, so you gotta move fast. You can support us this way at NewRockstarsMerch.com. Hardly tries to murder hostages, putting Walker at this crossroads. Composer Henry Jackman brings back his theme for Civil War here to underline Walker's come to Jesus moment, choosing to save the hostages instead of seeking revenge on Carly. Though I should say after what he did in episodes 4 and 5, John Walker's not really come to Jesus as it is Jesus actually pulling away his mesh face mask where he feels no texto underneath. But Walker's choice is emphasized by what he does let drop his cosplay shield evenly. But when the truck goes loose again, it's the true shield that lifts it. Making the shield like a rising sun, saving these lives. An inverse of the way John Walker framed it, eclipsing Nico and ending his life. Sam uses his drones for a boost similar to Iron Man's drones in Spider-Man Homecoming. Really, with this suit, Sam is truly a fusion of Captain America
Yeah, I thought Sam was gonna pull out the "I could do this all day" moment, but nah.
Richer fruit and strict justice.
Yeah, the president who oversaw the U.S. Civil War, another sign that Walker is learning the lessons that these Avengers had to learn the hard way in their Civil War. So Carly dies in Sam's arms, holding the hosta pendant that she held at Mama Donya's deathbed. And as Sam carries her body, his outstretched wings evoke that of an angel delivering his soul to the afterlife. Well, really, John, this stuff that she's going to care. I love how the reporters don't know what to make of Sam. Captain Falcon. I wonder what Sam's take moving super snaps would be. So Sam lectures the GRC leaders to change course, telling them that they gotta do better. And if I can do better, you can do better, maybe we all can do better. Really, even deeper than Sam's great points are the fact that we are seeing a black Captain America publicly speaking truth to power. It is a core component to Cap's character. We saw when Steve debated Nick Fury in Captain America Winter Soldier, or stood up to Tony Stark in Civil War. And Bucky acknowledges this evolution.
Nice job, Cap.
Thanks. Bucky pats the shield. He's both complimenting Sam by calling him Cap and patting the shield as a way of saying, nice job, Steve, for choosing this guy. And the last time we see Sam in the suit on the series, he soars across the frame with the shield briefly in close-up, gliding past us. Meanwhile, the rest of the Flag Smashers go, boom, to this. Defeated by Osnick, Zemo's butler from episode 3. And this news gets to Zemo on the raft prison from Civil War. He's wearing the same jumpsuits that they all wore then. On his shelf are a few books, Russian poet Alexander Pushkin, and Views of Nature by Alexander von Humboldt. I guess this is the Alexander shelf. Meanwhile, the book Zemo reads looks like the one he had to sell in episode 3, Fortune is a River, which explores the friendship between Machiavelli and Leonardo da Vinci in Renaissance era Florence, Italy. Now, I previously speculated that this book meant that the Machiavellian Zemo had a secret partnership with some Da Vinci figure in the shadows. Someone like,
Looks like our friend Zemo kind of got the last laugh.
yes, Zemo's Da Vinci was De Fontaine. Since Osnick likely could not have arranged that bombing himself, it is clear Val must have helped.
Couldn't have worked better if I planned it myself. Well, maybe I did. No, I'm kidding, I didn't. Or did I?
So the fact that Val has been in touch with Zemo, who's on the raft, facility overseen by Thunderbolt Ross, tells us that our theory that Val could be assembling a team of anti-heroes like the Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers may still be happening. And by saying the Flag Smasher's deaths is gonna save a lot of paperwork, redacting, and shredding, tells us that she must be part of some shadowy government division as opposed to working for Hydra or something. But Val has suited up John Walker as U.S. Agent, the dark-suited assassin from the comics that we expected him to end up as. Interesting to note, U.S. Agent also leads the Dark Avengers later in the comics. And Val ends by saying,
Things are about to get weird. So when they do, we're not gonna need a Captain America. We're gonna need a U.S. agent.
weird. Hmm? Well, one way to look at weird is that Val knows about the Skrull infiltration and that the secret invasion is coming. And in a world where no one trusts anyone, having an untrustworthy Dark Cap is more valuable. But Val also said last episode that the government's ownership of the shield is a legal gray area, making me wonder if she knows about Old Cap and how he brought that shield from an alternate timeline, making it technically the property of an alternate timeline government. So maybe the weirdness she's referring to is the coming multiverse crisis, something that we could see more of with Loki in the TVA. Meanwhile, Bucky makes true amends with Mr. Nakajima and officially crosses Mr. Nakajima's name off the list, a list whose names that we had broken down in previous breakdowns, and he leaves that notebook as a gift for Dr. Rayner, leaving the frame with an empty couch and empty woods. Bucky is now out of the woods. Sam visits Isaiah Bradley again,
Black Captain America, huh? Damn right.
and right as Sam says this, behind him, Eli Bradley enters the frame. Eli is the future Young Avenger Patriot, another black hat figure, but for now, he's still waiting his turn in line behind Sam. Meanwhile, behind Isaiah during the scene is interesting graffiti, the word "why me," reflecting how both of these men had the burden of Captain America's legacy thrust upon them. Now, Isaiah brings up Martin, Malcolm, and Mandela, of course, referring to civil rights leaders Martin Luther King Jr.
So I just want to say something to piggyback off of what I was saying about how they could be developing the Dark Avengers and the Young Avengers simultaneously. Um, obviously the Dark Avengers' whole role was they kind of pull the wool over over society's eyes and was like, you know, these are the good guys and really they're the bad guys. And the Young Avengers could be just set up as like, hey, this is going to be the future where we're leading to, and you know, to come up with the, we're gonna have the young kids fight the old, you know, young good guys fight old bad guys thing. Um, and remember, we're still waiting for the mutants to get introduced to, you know, the cinematic universe and all that other stuff. And I mean, what better setup? You know, one with all these superheroes and superpowers and blips are crazy, like all the craziness going on, aliens invading, things like that. Um, you know, and then having the wool pulled over your eyes by your own government of creating these Dark Avengers, and you know, you can imagine how just crazy, uh, just everyday citizens are going to be, right? And how scared they'd be of anything and everything. Like, you know what I mean? The world's gonna want to just stick its head in a hole at some point, or fight back. You know what I mean? And um, with, you know, the whole mutant fight that has always been the fight for mutants is like to fight for their right. You know what I mean? Because they're seen as less than humans, or they're not human, so they don't get the same rights and privileges as like human beings do, because they, you know, genetically they're just not humans anymore, or anything like that. The comic books, it really spoke to like civil rights movements and things like that, as far as like racism and racial things go. And I mean, they could be going in that direction, but I really think it's going to be more of just like, you know, mutants and whatever, and not, you know what I mean? They could pull from the racial stories, but instead of making it about race, they're going to make it about, you know, the genetic mutant gene and things like that. But with the Young Avengers, and who knows how many years it's going to be until they set stuff up like that. But with the Young Avengers, I mean, if they're going to win over the Dark Avengers, you know, when society realizes they've just been taken for fools, um, you're going to have these young kids with this responsibility of power and all this other stuff. And Spider-Man will have grown up since then. Let's say it's 10 years from now. I don't think it'll be that long, but let's say it's 10 years from now. 10 years from now, Tom Holland's going to be older. Who knows what they're going to be doing with his character, or what's going to happen with Spider-Man at that point. But we've already seen an older Spider-Man in the Miles Morales movie. But we're going to have these young kids with powers, and now we're going to, you know, what better way to introduce mutants? Because now you're going to have an angry people all around the world who are just angry at superheroes, because now it's like, I can't put my faith into superheroes anymore, because they're, you know, pulling black ops and lying to us, and not, you know what I mean? Like people just aren't going to be trustworthy of superpower people anymore. And now you have like mutants popping up for one reason or another. However they choose to do that. I don't know if it's going to be Weapon X or something like that. You know, I hope they don't take my ideas that I had for Wolverine, because within the story, you know, this concept work that I'm doing right now, you know, it's a part of a bigger story. And within that story, I have something of like a Wolverine type character, but it's the story of Wolverine that I always had in my head, and obviously can't exist in the canon of the Marvel Universe, because they made their own canon for Wolverine and things like that. So it's like, oh, okay, so the story that I have isn't who Wolverine is, but it was like, well, but it's still a good story. So I want to use it, and I'm going to use it. So I wrote it out, and then I essentially made my own character with it. But yeah, I'd be interested in knowing how they come upon mutants and things like that. But what better way to have like these young mutants with powers have to take on the responsibility of saving the day, just like the Young Avengers had to, and they have to fight against bad guys, but they also have to fight against society because humans won't trust them. And then, but they got to save them from the bad guys. Like, what better way to start setting all this stuff up? I don't think it'll be 10 years, but you know what I mean? Like, to have Spider Man older and to have Spider Man kind of be the one to tell them, hey, with great power comes great responsibility type of thing to these younger mutants. Um, yeah, I think it's really interesting what could happen. Now, I don't know what the mutant storyline will have to do with the Skrull storyline that I was talking about before, with like Young Avengers versus Dark Avengers during this alien invasion thing happening in the background. Like you know what I mean? Because then you still have to introduce mutants, and people are like, oh, well, maybe the Skrulls can be mutants or things like that. But it's like, I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna work, but yeah, it's interesting stuff.
My favorite thing about this is this Atlanta neighborhood where they shot this scene is home to where Martin Luther King was born. The famous MLK house is visible at the end of the street in episodes 2 and 5. So Sam brings Isaiah to this new addition to Cap's Smithsonian exhibit, including this plaque that details the history that Isaiah told him about, along with this old photograph. This shows Black World War II soldiers that actually inspired a panel in true red, white, and black. I love how this bookends the shot that we saw back in episode 1, Sam's reflection as he stared at that shield in the display case. It was actually him realizing people who look like him have been erased from this history, as Sam's translucent form in that scene suggested. But now, Sam has transformed this from an optical illusion to a tangible reality with this statue of Isaiah Bradley. And we celebrate with a family cookout, a reminder that fixing the Wilson family vote has always been a personal metaphor for Sam for restoring the legacy of the Shield, which he has done. As Curtis Hardy's On and On plays, the final credit revises the series title to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Then we get to this post-credit scene with Sharon receiving a full pardon to return to her old rank as Agent 13.
The Carter name has always been synonymous with service and trust. Welcome home, Agent Carter.
Two references there to Peggy Carter, Sharon's great aunt, who will show up in What If and hopefully a future film with Steve Rogers in that alternate timeline. It was actually announced that a fourth Captain America film is in development from the Falcon Winter Soldier showrunner Malcolm Spellman, but that's probably going to follow Sam Wilson, not Tony Scott, and Steve Rogers' past films that may or may not be in development. And we end on another power broker tease from Sharon Carter. She was someone on the phone, maybe one of her Magic Report operatives, or some other criminal from the Marvel world. Hydra, Ten Rings, Hammer, AIM, Oscorp, whoever this is most likely said with Sharon to return in the series Armor Wars, which Rhodey is going to star in this miniseries about the weaponry of the MCU getting into the wrong hands. But my favorite detail about Sharon's final moves, as she exits the courtroom, the camera suddenly slows down, and she looks directly at Hannah. It is as if she knows how much her power reveal broke us. I gotta hand it to you, Agent Carter. I had my doubts, but it was you. Oh, hey, I want to thank everyone so much for supporting us throughout this breakdown series. You can follow me on Instagram at Twitter at EABoss, follow New Rockstars, and subscribe to New Rockstars for breakdowns of this, other Marvel stuff, Loki, really anything that will break my heart or drop bone or read my theories. Bye!
So, Elena, this is Fitness Origins, a fitness competition show where I use the films of the MCU to torture.
Larry here, and in this video I'm going to go through the new Resident Evil Village castle portion.
There we go. Talk about some of that new Resident Evil trailer or demo that happened over the weekend. That should look good. I watched a few people play through it. I want to see Susie's, but I don't know where it is.
A stranger yes, he does know the merchant from Resident Evil 4, and he repeats that catchphrase.
What are you buying? Just something to refresh the
He even has the old merchant's creepy laugh. How else do you think these two merchants are connected in Village? The merchant does a bunch of weird stuff. He's smoking, he makes weird faces, and in this scene, Ethan walks in and finds the dude sleeping. The demo gives us a close look at recipes, which are the new way that you have to use to craft. In other games, you would just find two items, put them together, but here you can't do that even with the right items until you buy the recipe. We bought them all, you can see them right here on the screen. They all use gunpowder, rusted scrap, chem fluid, and then the mines use a big metal scrap. I forgot to make the sniper rifle ammo. Oh, I'll just go back into the demo right now and do, the time ran out and we can't freaking play the demo again. Anyway, we did make the hardest weapon to make, which is the mine, and that's because you need this big piece of scrap metal here. And once you get that, it's simple to make, and it takes out multiple enemies at once. The demo gives us our first look at the pipe bombs, and they're pretty cool. I think they're better than the mines, and you can take out, again, multiple enemies. And yourself. It's a little complicated, but if you play the right way, by getting all the treasures first and not breaking any vases, and then selling all your items, and in the shop you
Oh shit! I
actually
forgot to make coffee.
and you upgrade the
Let me
firehouse, and
let me
you
do
upgrade
that.
the reload speed. You can get a
This is a
really
good
fast
place.
supply
You
and
know,
tons of shotgun
I
shells.
remember where I'm at.
In past Resident Evil games, a lot of the ammo is randomized, and it depends on which weapons you have, what it's going to give you. So if you sell your handgun and you only have a shotgun, more shotgun shells appear in those random spaces. The vampire lore is strong in the castle, and we've seen a coffin in the trailer, and now we see the coffin in the demo in this section that we can't get to. We use photo mode, we got in there. I think it's a different coffin. Sanguine Virginis, also known as Maiden's Blood, it's Lady D's signature wine. And we've seen the demo, there is a wine bottle missing from the wine room, which is a key item. And then when we finally do run into Lady D for a split second, if we zoom in on her, we see she's got that bottle. And if you missed it in the last one, you know why. Because here is Maiden's Blood. Side note here, we accidentally zoomed in and showed you why Capcom knows exactly what they're doing with photo mode. But we see on Lady D's, Double D's, that she's got a bunch of makeup and it's all cracky and it's kind of gross. We think that she's from the Victorian era as well, and she's probably 200 years old or something like that. And back then, all the women wanted to be super white. So that's kind of what we think explains that. I've been doing Village videos since the announcement, and it took me dozens of them to learn Lady Glowczewski and how to say it. And then Ethan in the freaking demo. Dimitrescu. Dimitrescu? What? This has to be a translation thing like Clancy Jarvis, right? Or they want us to say Mommy Trest, don't they? In the castle, we see a cool portrait of the three sisters, and it looks like they're from the Victorian era, like 200 years ago. And they look fairly similar in age now, so that portrait might have taken place just before they turned into vampires. Or until they got whatever virus Umbrella has.
I can't believe Cassandra caused all this mess. I hate stupid men. You're tonight.
square off against one of the sisters in the demo, similar to the original PS5 demo. And you cannot kill her no matter how many shotguns to the head you do. But when you do shoot her a couple times or knock her health down, she'll disappear and you'll be able to run past her, or you'll be able to kind of buy some time before she reappears. And in the demo, her idea is to actually push you along in the game. So once you go through a certain door, she won't let you go back out that door, and it kind of forces you to the next section. Not sure if that's going to happen in the real game or not. And this is a good time to go all the way back to the very first scene in the demo, where you see her outfit laying across the couch.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. People said it was a rug. I was like, that looks like what the girls wear.
There are a bunch of treasures in the demo. There are 4 crystal fragments. There was a chalice to find. There was a couple crystal skulls from enemies. And the main thing that's interesting is we find out that this necklace here
Probably should have just did all this in Photoshop.
we thought it was in the PS5 demo is actually just a treasure that was not activated in the
Oh, well, this is the first time I'm doing concept art this big. And I knew it was going to take up a lot of material to do. But now that I'm doing it, it's like, okay, don't do it like this next time. But since I started it, got to finish it.
the door. And this other one, apparently there are 4 of these little Marvel Madness things around the area, and each one you have to find a ball to use it, and then each one's going to unlock something. Interesting story here. There's a guy named Rushian, and he had 4 wives, and he turned their human remains into crystallized labyrinths, and that's what these puzzles are. Oh yeah, and he killed himself. Hope we learn more in the game. And let's not forget this puzzle, which we solved when we saw a screenshot. So simple.
Is that how people knew how to do that?
Portrait room that mentioned redhead Mother Miranda, and 2, you've got a note that describes the maiden's bloodline we already talked about. There's a maiden's diary in the basement that implies the bad guys are vampires, and it talks about closing the window so those gargoyle things can't get in. And there's a couple of notes in the basement related to human experiments. Maybe they're trying to turn them into vampires or something like that. So that's it. That's so much stuff to cover. I can't believe I talked for 10 minutes about a demo that actually wasn't that amazing. But we got to see a lot of stuff that's going to be in the game and kind of get a little bit of a test run on it. Be sure to click the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you thought about the demo. Always go.
There we go. Got my boy. Talking Thrones. Which video is this? I wonder if he's going to continue his writing season 9. Or if this is another something else.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 9 video. As you all know, I have been writing my own version of Game of Thrones Season 9. I have made
Hell yeah.
4 episodes so far, but now I will show you what happens in my next one. Shall we begin? This is Game of Thrones Season 9, Episode 5, which I have named The Old Gods. In the very first scene of this episode, the sky is beginning to get dark as the sun slowly slips behind the horizon. Off into the distance, we can see there is a gigantic castle on the far side of the lake. We're in a location we have never been before. We're on the shore of God's Eye, somewhere we have only seen glimpses of in Bran Stark's flashbacks. This evening is eerily silent. The only thing we can hear is the sound of the red leaves rustling in the wind and the water gently splashing against the rocks. In the middle of this lake is
wisdom and secrets older than the land itself. The faces on these werewolves are different than the ones we have seen in the north. They look frightening, almost like they've witnessed all of the atrocities throughout the history of Westeros. There is something very unsettling about them. It looks as if the werewolves are guarding the sacred Isle of Faces themselves. There must be hundreds of them standing side by side, surrounding the entire island in a circle. The werewolves look alive as their red leaves dance in the wind. Suddenly, we start to see some movement. There are shadows shifting back and forth behind the werewolves. We can hear the sound of branches breaking underneath footsteps. Hundreds of small green figures begin to emerge from the woods. They're all wearing helmets that are shaped
Oops.
like antlers. Their green and brown skin looks as if it's made from the leaves. These green men do not look like the innocent children of the forest who were hiding out in the north. These little green men have a ghastly look about their faces. All of them are holding dragon-glass weapons in their hands. However, they're not made from the black obsidian we have always seen before. Their dragon-glass weapons are green, and some of them are even red. All of them begin to stand shoulder to shoulder on the shore of the sacred Isle of Faces. As the werewolves stand guard over the island, the green men stand there, silently watching over the werewolves behind them. It would be very difficult for anyone to get onto this island unless you are welcomed here. In the following scene, we go back to King's Landing, where a crowd is gathered below the Red Keep. There are now men and women everywhere. The new city watch is standing around Sir Bron's lifeless body as they hold everyone back. We see Brienne walking around, asking everyone questions in hopes of finding out what they all saw and heard. Her hand is still resting on the hilt of her sword. The city watch make way for Samwell, who is holding his hand over his mouth while he throws a blanket over Bronn. A few of the Stark guardsmen lift his body off the ground before they lay it down on the back of the wagon. The onlookers are still shocked by the gruesome scene. The shape of Bronn's body can still be seen on the ground, where he was outlined by bits of his own bone and large amounts of blood. Some of Bronn's hair can even be seen on the stone street below the Red Keep. Lord Tyrion is standing there speechless as he watches his friend's body get hauled away. He finally snaps out of his daze as he hears a soft whisper behind him say, "I saw what happened, my lord. I saw it with my own eyes." Now Tyrion looks over his shoulder, wondering where the voice came from. The only one standing there behind him is a short man dressed in rags. He doesn't say anything at first. He looks over at Sam and Brienne. Sam is kneeling down, looking at something on the ground. Brienne is still standing there, only now she's speaking to one of the Stark guardsmen. Not knowing what this man will say, Tyrion doesn't want everyone overhearing him. When he sees that the
Yikes.
others are still busy, he looks back over at the man and
Whoa,
says,
what is up with
"Follow
that?
me." They begin walking away from the scene. They don't walk far. Before they find a building they can slip behind out of sight. He grabs the man by his wrist before asking him, "What did you see? I want you to tell me every detail." The man looks down at Tyrion, then says, "He was thrown off the balcony, my lord. I was standing right below the Red Keep when I suddenly heard a few voices shouting from above. When I looked up, I saw 4 men standing there. It looked like they were arguing about something. It all happened so fast. The next thing I know, the men began shoving each other, but only one of them went over the railing. While letting go of the man's wrist, Tyrion asks him, 'Who are the other men? Do you remember what they looked like, or what they were wearing?' 'I do, my lord,' says the man dressed in rags. 'Let me show you.' They step back out from behind the building. The man looks over where the crowd is still gathered around. He holds out his finger in front of him and says, 'They look just like him.' When Tyrion follows the man's eyes and finger, he can see exactly who he was referring to. They're now looking at one of the Stark guardsmen. Reluctantly, Tyrion says, 'I was afraid you would say that.' Now he steps in closer to the man. In a low whisper, he says, 'Did you happen to see anyone else out there on the balcony? Someone that might have been sitting down?' The man suddenly gets nervous as he realizes the gravity of the situation. 'No, my lord, I did not see anyone else.' Tyrion now looks away, while silently letting out a sigh of relief. He looks back at the man, then says, 'Do not speak to anyone else about this without speaking to me first. Do you understand?' The man nods his head, then says, 'Of course, my lord.' He then throws the man a small sack of golden dragons and says, 'That should be enough to buy your silence for now. What is your name?' The man says, 'My name is Damien, my lord.' 'Thank you for the information,' says Tyrion. 'I may need you again before all of this is over. Where can I find you?' Brienne begins walking back over to where Brienne is standing, he starts asking her what she has heard. What is everyone saying about what happened? Brienne says, I find it a little hard to believe, but they're all saying he fell on his own. There had to be someone standing out here that saw something else. Then he realizes,
All right.
if that's what they saw, then that's what they saw.
Let me pause this.
Glance over at him.
And that's going to be it for this episode. I mean, we're going on 2 hours, so it's been a while. It's been a little bit. And for the most part, all I did was throw a few more coats of green to kind of shade these in a little bit more. This is still just the rough stages. I'm going to end up like sharpening everything up. Later on, threw some more green down here. Going to have to like, sharpen all that up as well. So it's all just slowly getting around to the rendering. I did the sand, but I feel like the sand really needed the colored pencils. And I don't know how I feel about the having to color all that, because that's a lot of time. It's basically like almost 2 hours that was spent on just like getting this sand rendered. And it's like, man, how much do I really care about this sand? Couldn't I have just done it in Photoshop later on? But it is what it is. It's been a while since I've done anything, and I kind of want to do this whole big piece a little bit of justice. You know what I mean? Since I'm always working at this scale, and I'm going to continue to work at that scale, but it's nice to show off, like, hey, this is what I do when I work at a larger scale. Except I would be watercoloring if this were a commission or on its own loose leaf sheet. But since this is in my sketchbook, I'm not going to watercolor paint in my sketchbook. Like, just can't do it. So I just stick to the markers and the colored pencils and inks and everything like that when I'm working in the sketchbook. So, the quality is going to be what it is. But yeah, I could have easily got a fat brush and then just go and really covered a whole lot of ground really quickly. So, hey, it is what it is. And you know what? The water doesn't look half bad either. I knew once I threw in that white marker or white paint marker that the water was going to start to come through. So I'm happy about that. I'm overall happy about everything. But that's going to be it. I am G Mr. Drew. That's at G Mr. Drew on all social media. You can follow, like, and subscribe. I'm on, I'm everywhere. Check out my website. All the links are there, gmrdrew.art. And, you can keep up with me on there. And what else? Yeah, that's going to be it for this Andrew Glowczewski experience on episode 123. Jeez, we getting up there. And, yeah, man, just working on more concept art for this character here. And, yeah, man, just checking him out in his environment and seeing what kind of dude he is. And I think it really does explain who he is, like everything here. At least get it done, get it out of the way, and then I can move on. And like I said, move on to working on this guy's environment and maybe even finish off with some props down here. Maybe I'll do that later on today when I'm working. I don't know. I gotta call my brother and see if he still wants to go watch the Demon Slayer movie. We planned on watching it today, so yeah, we'll see. And if we do, you better believe I'll have something to say about that. Either way, I want to thank you for watching. Thank everybody for watching. I love you all. And, feel free to hit me up on Fiverr or Patreon if you like this and you want me to, kind of work on one of your characters, to send you a commission, anything like that. All right, man. Y'all take care. I love y'all. Peace.